Hello and thank you for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us. The Government Communications Service, in its latest statement, said that the terrorist TPLF, having closed all options for peace, has intensified the military attacks it has launched. The statement said the terrorist TPLF, having trampled upon the peace options, extended its invasion for a third time, launching and intensifying attacks on the nation. The government underscored that it is as clear as day that the terrorist group has been preparing for a full-scale conflict, leaving aside the path for peace. By expanding its attacks on various fronts, the TPLF has continued targeting innocent civilians. Following the outdated human wave warfare strategy, the TPLF has continued its large-scale attacks on civilians, sending youth in large numbers to bordering communities. The TPLF is currently moving towards the borders of the Amhara and Afar regions to carry out killings, displacement, destruction of property and infrastructure, as well as other brutal activities, the government indicated. The National Defense Forces are coordinating and responding with full efficiency and capabilities to the large-scale attack launched by this terrorist group, the statement said. The TPLF resumed its war of aggression for another round to dismantle Ethiopia. The group risked the lives of many Tigrayans and Ethiopians in the previous war. Talking to ETV, Jeff Pierce, historian, author, and journalist, exposed the devilish act of the TPLF. He also called upon Friends of Ethiopia to voice the Ethiopian interests in a new social media tactic. Shagao Yamato has the detail.
Jeff Pierce, a historian, author, and journalist, is known for relentlessly exposing atrocities on the people of Amhara and Afar committed by the TPLF. Talking to ETV, the historian said the TPLF began war with adjacent regions to commit another atrocity, otherwise it will face serious protests from the people of Tigray.
The word is that they are prepping to create another one of their atrocity actions that the Western media can jump on and play up, which will give them another excuse to do something. We've seen this before with the frozen bodies that suddenly go down to rivers and get shot at the same time, which is ridiculous. And apparently they're trying to do the same thing again. I would not be at all surprised if when they try, Lucy Casa is reporting on it because she goes back and forth and plays both sides now. So that's sort of the deal that I'm hearing. They have to do this because unless they have perpetual war, well, they're in deep trouble because otherwise their own people, Tigrayans, are fleeing their area in droves, trying to get away from them.
Regarding Tedros Adhanom, Director General of the World Health Organization, Pierce stated that Adhanom is a huge danger to public health, from the many disappearances of Amharas to the deaths of millions by COVID-19 pandemic across the globe.
He's directly implicated in millions of Amhara disappearing off the just into thin air, off the rolls of the census, plus scores of women getting forced sterilization and contraceptives without informed consent. From the Washington Post, if you want to play the Western media card, they were reporting on him sucking up to China at the start of the COVID crisis. And the reason why he did this was because he thought that they would be on their side in terms of the TPLF propaganda and the struggle. And they discovered, nope, there's no allegiance there. He put millions of people around the world at risk. And we don't know how many people possibly died because of this man's incompetence and his corruption. He changed his tune very quickly as the COVID pandemic situation escalated to save his own skin. But yeah, this guy's a huge danger to public health.
The author finally urged Friends of Ethiopia to voice the Ethiopian cause in a new social media tactic. This, he said, is because the momentum of the No More movement was discontinued.
The No More movement was organized along the model of the Black Lives Matter movement, which means that it franchised out so that everybody could do their own thing in separate cities. And that was fine, but it didn't allow for the momentum built and then it sort of dissipated. We need something new. Now, the thing is, what they've done, and they also attacked the No More movement. People like William Fungus Davison and others attacked it as being some kind of outgrowth of the Ethiopian government. I happen to know that's a damn lie because I happen to know all three founders, at least two of them I've had multiple conversations with. I happen to know the allies. So they want to try to demonize anything that is a social movement that would just be Ethiopian. How do we fight this? Well, let's see them try to fight an entire continent because that is what is at stake. The message has to come through that if you attack one, you attack the family of Africa. And we have to organize this now.
The TPLF's latest military foray remains the saddest story of war. More than 300,000 confirmed death toll in only one side of the conflict, ruined lives of millions, most of them school-aged, productive and reproductive fellow brothers and sisters, victimized. The TPLF released photos of armed children at the outbreak of the war, which is testimony of the fact that this brutal force is still quenching its ravenous appetite for war by using human shield. A video which this terrorist group aired on its airwaves shows young women being conscripted and cheered by reckless war generals. Political observers say the TPLF is growing more desperate as it suffers more casualties. The TPLF has forewent peace talks, stolen UN fuel and restarted war, but all the while using the people of Tigray as collateral. It couldn't be clearer that one cannot stand up for the people of Tigray without denouncing the ethno-fascist TPLF. The ruling Prosperity Party, PP, has urged the people of Tigray not to allow themselves to be used as cannon fodder for the terrorist TPLF to prolong existence of the outlawed group. In a statement it issued, the ruling party said the TPLF has practically demonstrated that it has nothing useful to the people other than trading on blood for the youth in the state, recalling that the group recruited and drove underage youths to war. The party underscored that a quest by the people can be addressed only through accelerating development and strengthening democratic system, not by beating the drums of war. The intention of the leaders of the terrorist TPLF group to wreak havoc and disintegrate Ethiopia will never succeed. Therefore, they have to refrain from their belligerent acts, the party noted. The TPLF and its allies have continued disseminating fake news in connection with the recent airstrike, which has only targeted the TPLF military camps. Recently, the TPLF lobbyists are sensationalizing the conflict with a smear campaign against the government. Habtamu Ashagri compiles the following report.
The federal government discloses that the TPLF has already launched a third-round attack on Wednesday by firing heavy artillery in Afar and Amhara states. Contrary to the hard fact on the ground, the TPLF cliques ran wild and misinformed in the national community that it was actually Addis Ababa which launched the attack. However, when news of TPLF's cruel pillage on the warehouse of the World Food Programme in Mekelle filled the airwaves, the TPLF stood dead on its track. The federal government's airstrike provides another opportunity for the TPLF to come up with another media stunt saying that the airstrike fired bombs which struck through a kindergarten, killing children. It's to be recalled that the government made clear that residents had to distance themselves from TPLF's military facilities, which people know very well. The government gave Tigrayan every conceivable chance to flee before the strike began. Even then, the airstrikes only hit their selected targets as opposed to civilian areas. The TPLF's fake news is a barefaced lie given the fact that all schools in the Tigray state have long been shut and certainly kindergartens were no exceptions. It goes without saying that most of the international and even continental media outlets simply picked the wild accusations against Addis Ababa that the TPLF came up with and simply add rapid news analysis. If the federal government of Ethiopia is responsible, it could have bombed the facilities without bothering to issue a warning statement. The TPLF seems to be heavily losing on international front as some of its acts of aggression are laid bare and the international community, unlike the past, is seeking all the right questions. Meanwhile, the government has continued to reiterate that it's never too late to give peace a chance.
Vicky Ford, the UK's Minister for Africa, Latin America and the Caribbean, criticized the TPLF's seizure of petroleum from the WFP storage facility in Mekelle, Tigray, calling it unacceptable. According to her, the theft by the TPLF organization will hinder the region's humanitarian response. She urged all parties to take steps to ensure that aid reaches the people in need in northern Ethiopia, including swiftly re-establishing the humanitarian ceasefire. Ethiopian ambassador to the Republic of South Sudan, Nabil Mahdi, held discussions with Interior Minister of the Republic of South Sudan, Mahmoud Solomon. The two have discussed how to improve their collaboration on shared security issues and prevent any potential risks to the peace and stability of both nations. They have also talked about creating shared border facilitations to allow for both countries' citizens freedom of movement while preventing illicit interactions. In business, a capacity building center for the power sector is to be built in Bishoftu town at a cost of 10 million euros secured from the French government. The Ethiopian Electric Power Training and Capacity Program was proposed to the Ministry of Water and Energy by a mission in charge of the project. In the briefing session, it was mentioned that the program's goal was to assist Ethiopian Electric Power in enhancing the workforce's competencies. Sultan Wali, the State Minister for Energy Development, for his part, expressed his gratitude for the efforts put in to establish the program and ensured that his office would support its success. And finally, from across East Africa, coffee farmers in Tanzania attribute the drop in coffee productivity to climate change, which has intensified drought diseases and killed insects that pollinate coffee plants. The Tanzania Coffee Research Institute and the Tanzania Coffee Board are now teaching farmers how to adapt to changing weather conditions. Kasahunchani tells you more.
Illinois is finding it hard to grow coffee the traditional way. The effects of climate change are taking a toll on once coffee-rich Kilimanjaro. The highlands' increased temperatures have come with disease. Tanzania is the fourth largest coffee producer in Africa, with 90% of its coffee being produced by smallholder farmers like Illinois. The remaining 10% is produced by larger states. Randall says that with our special climate-resistant seeds, coffee production will be no more.
These diseases that we deal with now, like leaf rust and CBD, did not exist in the 1970s. I'm no expert, but I think it's due to the change in the climate.
The Tanzanian Coffee Board is a government entity tasked with regulating and promoting coffee business in Tanzania. Official data from the body says coffee employs about 7% of the population, pumping out about 70,000 metric tons annually. But they acknowledge that coffee production in the Kilimanjaro region is under threat.
As temperature increases, actually the ability of coffee, the potentiality of coffee to produce flowers and beans is also affected. The incidence of pests and diseases, for example, also increases, and the coffee is also affected.
But researchers at the Tanzanian Coffee Research Institute have teamed up with the Tanzanian Coffee Board to revive the industry by growing and developing drought-resistant coffee seedlings. The institute has obtained more than 60,000 quality coffee seedlings, which are being distributed to farmers.
We have perfected 3 methods of seed multiplication of improved coffee varieties: the grafting technique and chronopropagation and hybrid seed production. All these 3 methods we are promoting by training coffee growers to make sure they multiply seedling of improved coffee varieties which are resistant to climate change.
Coffee contributes about a quarter of Tanzania's agriculture GDP and is a strategic crop grown in the country's 17 regions. Tanzania exports 90% of its coffee to Japan, Italy and the United States, while the remaining 7% is exported, consumed locally.
You're watching Addis News Hour. These are the stories making headlines. Government says TPLF has continued its large-scale attacks on civilians. And activist calls upon Ethiopians to launch a new wave of media campaign against the TPLF. And that's all we had for now. I'm Tabitha John. Many thanks for